Stephen Peterson here. Good morning to you. Well, if it's morning where you're watching it, it's morning while I'm doing this, so good morning to you. I'm here to talk about patterns and process and principles, routines and habits. And the reason I'm doing this is because of this experience I had in my life. I wanted everything immediate, everything I worked on. Can I lose 5 pounds in one day? Let's do that. Can I double my pay in a week? That's too long. 2 days. I wanted immediate answers to everything, and I got some immediate answers. But I noticed there was a long period of time between my breakthroughs, my immediate answers, my realization of a dream or a vision coming to pass. And I noticed in that time, all it was filled was patterns, habits. You can even call them rituals, routines, things we do all the time. And I started to notice that very successful people had different patterns. They didn't have a different skill set. They could probably say the word skill. They didn't have a different skill set. They had a different pattern. You know what I learned? I've learned a couple of things. I was a perfectionist. Now I'm in recovery. I'm a recovering perfectionist. And this is really important if you're somebody like me. And of course, most perfectionists don't admit they're perfectionists because they fall so short and see so many limitations of themselves. But something beats nothing. Doing something always beats nothing. And since we live in patterns and process and routine and habits, I want to pick up the most successful ones I can. You don't need to have the same ones I have. I don't need to have the same ones you have. But we might have some similarities in different places. But if you change one pattern, you find one pattern, one routine, one habit that's not producing, and you throw it out and pick up a successful one, and what I mean is successful, other people are already succeeding doing it. One of the things I read over and over, it's the most successful people in the terms of making the most money. They get up very, very early. Well, by nature, I think by God's design, I have to get up early, but by God's design, I do better late at night. And so I'm not sure I would pick that pattern up, because I think if I got up every morning at 5:30 or 6, an hour or an hour and a half before I needed to, by noon, I'd probably be dragging. I don't know. But I do notice, I recognize, okay, these people all have this one pattern in common. So all I'm trying to do is get you, I'm not trying to sell you a pattern, I'm trying to sell you on the idea, on the concept, on the principle, that if you change one pattern, you can change your life. And here's one of the patterns I'd like you to adapt and adopt, and that is getting a hold of me. My email address is patternsforprogress@gmail.com. I almost put my name in there. My name's not in there. I'm Stephen Peterson. But patternsforprogress@gmail.com. I'm going to do one or two or three patterns the most mentally tough people have in common. 12 of the most mentally adaptable, successful patterns, mentally tough people. I'm going to share that with you today. And if you want all 12, I'm going to do one or two or three. If you want all 12, then just email me at patternsforprogress@gmail.com. Or if you got a success story, Steve, I changed this pattern in my life and look what happened. Because generally, if you change one pattern, it's going to affect more than one area of your life. If you start being very disciplined about what you eat, you'll probably start being more disciplined in your money and in the words you say. A pattern has that effect. It has that cross current effect. It doesn't just affect one thing. That's why it's so important. And the other part is, if you don't have any friends, because I hear from people, oh, I don't have a lot of money, I don't have any influential friends. A pattern works for anyone. Now, some people may have more talent to go with that pattern, and they may outdo you, but you need a new pattern to release the skill set, the abilities, the strengths you have in you. You need one new pattern. I've never met anybody who didn't need a new pattern, because none of us are perfect. And I'm not trying to get you to adapt or adopt the ones I do, but I want to share some with you, okay? And like I said, there's 12. Now let's see if we can get to 3, because we'll touch on each one. And one of them is mentally tough people practice being grateful. In other words, they recognize what they do have in their life, whether it's friendships or family or money or favor. You recognize, you look around, nobody has everything, but everybody has something. So mentally tough people recognize what they do have, whether it's a strength or just what would you call a blessing? Just something that's really nice to have. I've got a very good family, a very good family. People ask me, maybe you should teach on being a dad. I'd rather teach on being grateful. I thank God for the great family I have. It's not a big family, but it's a great family. And it's been a great family from the time I had it. It's something I have. And I can look sometimes like, oh man, I wished I had more money. I wished I had more power. I wished I had more. But mentally tough people, and these are all good patterns. I won't teach all 12, and I don't want you to pick up all 12 today. If one resonates with you, then say, that's what I want. I'm going to start doing that because it takes more than one. I've got studies that say it takes 21 days of doing the same thing before something becomes a pattern or a habit or a routine. Others say 28 days. Then the best one I've ever read said, depending on how hard it is or how opposite it is of the pattern that's in you, it can take months. I had a friend, I think he went 9, 10 months without smoking, and he wanted smoking out of his life. If you like to smoke, smoke. Have two. I don't care. I'm not trying to get you to pick the patterns. I'm trying to get you to recognize patterns that will work against you or patterns that will work for you. In his life, he said, man, I've got to get rid of smoking. It's too expensive. It was harming his health. I believe he went 10 months before he finally stopped craving a cigarette, where he just didn't think about it all day. 10 months. Well, of course, that has to do with the nicotine that's in cigarettes and the addiction of the drug along with the pattern. But in other words, some patterns you can adapt easily and adopt easily, and they can become part of your life quickly. Others may not. Practicing gratitude. I don't know if it's because I'm Norwegian or it's just who I am, but I can see things wrong. It's being a perfectionist. Even though I'm a perfectionist in recovery, I can see what's wrong. If I turned on this show and watched it, I could tell you, oh, I would move this on the set, I would do this. And so I don't do that. I don't do it because I'm trying to practice gratitude. I thank God. It's not a big crew, I've got a small crew that does this TV show. Thank God for the crew. I thank God for this opportunity to talk to you, for this opportunity to be on television and also have our own YouTube channel, and we're still working on that. But I'm grateful for that. And if you get a list and start writing down, you can most people can fill up a pretty big paper with the things they have. Now, we might be able to fill up 5 papers with the things we don't have that we want. But mentally tough people, good patterns to have, be grateful. Don't complain about what you don't have. Go try to get it. But be thankful and grateful for what you do have. Another thing is, they acknowledge mentally tough. This is a list, 12 mentally tough people. And I don't know who described it, and I don't know who compiled it, but I like them. This is one that really was one of the major changing points in my life, and I'm not sure I've got it, but I recognize it. Acknowledge your weakness. Acknowledge where you need help. Well, I'm strong in this, and I don't need anybody's help, but in this area, I'm weak. If I had to light this set, I don't have a clue how to light it. I can tell you if it looks poor or if it looks good, but I don't have a clue how to do it. Acknowledge your weakness. Look for help in that area. And the difference between a weakness and an undeveloped strength, you can't tell them apart at the start till you start applying effort. Almost every person I've ever met has an undeveloped strength in their life that they've just looked down on, or I'm not as good as somebody else, and it just didn't come to me naturally. I have a friend who started her first painting. I think she's in her 30s. She's young looking, 30 is young, and she's a friend of my daughter. And she put it up on Facebook. It was exquisite, your first painting. She sat on that strength a long time. And now, if I did a painting even close to it, that would be my masterpiece. I would just quit. I think she's just going to start from there and just keep painting. It releases something in her. I believe it's a God-given gift. And so you acknowledge your limitations and say, hey, I need help here. I need help. Who can teach me? Don't reinvent the wheel. I have a friend, Dale, who told me that about 25, maybe 30 years ago. And you know how many times I've reinvented the wheel? When you see somebody doing something well, go copy it. You can add your part to it, your nuance, your touch. Go ahead and copy it. And that's the whole point of a pattern. I'm telling you patterns that work. Patterns that work. Insecure people, perfectionists tend to be insecure people because they look at what they have and don't have, and you pay more attention to what you don't have. Find those strengths, recognize them, take credit for them, grow them, get as good as you can at them. But recognize your weakness. You don't have to tell everybody all the time where you're weak, but you tell yourself the truth. And don't compare yourself to somebody else. That's another thing. Mentally strong people they don't spend any time comparing themselves to someone else. This singer, if you're a singer, to that singer. This painter to that, this businessman. No. No. If you're strong, go ahead. Own it, own up to it, and just develop it. A very wise businessman named Buddy Harrison, he's no longer with us, but he told me years ago, Stephen, when you hit a wave, ride that wave till it's gone. In other words, if it's a strength, ride it. If it's an opportunity, take it. It may not last a lifetime, so you just go with it as long as you can. I believe there's waves, there's opportunities coming by every day for every person. But if you don't change that mental picture in there, that dialogue that goes on, oh, nothing good ever happens to me, I don't ever get any breaks. Those breaks are going right by you, and you don't even know it. And that's the last thing I'm going to share, the inner critic. Conquer the inner critic. Again, if you're not a perfectionist, you might have a good dialogue. Man, you're the best. You're so smart. You're so good looking. You're so sharp. You're the best. But for perfectionists and recovering perfectionists, it's easy to see where we're missing it, where we're lacking. You've got to conquer that inner critic. Otherwise, you're going to constantly be listening to somebody, hoping to somebody say something good about me. Will you stop saying all that junk about you? You want to change a pattern that'll change your life. Stop being your worst critic. Stop it. Doesn't mean, if let's say you did a painting. Well, I don't know if I can sell that one. If you did your best, say I did my best and I'm not going to run it down. If it's your project at work, maybe it didn't meet the standards of your boss, but if you did your best, be honest, that's as good as I can get. Maybe I need to find a different career. But change the inner critic. Don't be the first one to put you down. Don't be the first one to notice, oh, do you see what's wrong? I got something wrong with my coat, or I've got something wrong. No. Shut up the inner critic inside of you and start being somebody who supports you, who promotes you, who believes in you. You've got to believe in you before anybody else does. See, I believe in God. Now, I believe God believes in you, and that's why you're still breathing. That's why I'm still breathing. But you have to believe in you. You're going to believe you before you believe anybody else. I've had some of the sharpest people I've ever met compliment me, and you know what I thought immediately? I wonder if they mean that. Why didn't I just take them at their word? Look what I've done. There's 12 of these that all mentally tough people do. If you want that list, email me at patternsforprogress@gmail.com. Should be on the screen. patternsforprogress@gmail.com. I'll give you the list or send you the link, or tell me where you're succeeding. Tell me where you're failing, and let's see if we can't do something to change one pattern in your life that'll change your life. I'm Stephen Peterson. The program is Patterns for Progress. I appreciate you watching, and I hope I'll see you again next week. Thank you so much.